It has become the go-to binge watch during lockdown. Everybody's talking about it and asking the question, did Carol Baskin really feed her husband to the tigers?
You could be tempted to do that, couldn't you?
Last night when you were frying those chops, absolutely could have
if
done.
I ever disappear, folks, look out for tigers,
But listen,
OK?
this is the Netflix series, Tiger King, featuring Joe Exotic, as he's called. And we said so many people are literally obsessed with this show.
Now, if you've actually been catnapping and missed it, here's a taste of what you've missed. I tell you what, if this was a feature film, you would say too far-fetched. You couldn't actually believe it. But believe me, it's all there. It's all true. It's all amazing. What a plot line. If you haven't watched Tiger King yet, well, look, listen, you're going to find out lots more about it. It's all out there in the public domain. And we want now to speak to Joe Exotic, who's in jail. He used to own a tiger park. He's now in jail. He's called the Tiger King. He's got a number of husbands. He's had a number of husbands. He's had two at once, actually, at one stage. But this is his latest husband, and this is a lad called Dillon. And we're going to go live to his home there in the USA, in Florida. Dillon, very good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Not at all. We feel we know you, Dillon. We feel you know anyone who's watching the series and you know, and you've come into it and how you come into it. We all sort of feel we know you. I want to ask you straight away, how is Joe coping with life behind bars? Because he's in there on a 22-year sentence.
I mean, you know, nobody can really say that they're doing good from being in jail, but, you know, we're doing our best to keep Joe positive and, you know, keep him optimistic for what could happen. We have an appeal coming up, so, you know, I mean, that could take up to a year, but it's in the works right now.
Yeah, we should say he's behind bars, currently serving 22 years for hiring a hit or a hitman on the animal rights activist Carol Baskin and some other charges as well there. So I just want to clarify as to what's going on. Although President Trump has said in the last week he may have a look at this and see what's going on. Does that fill you with any hope?
You know, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a big deal to have the president address something like that. And, you know, Joe is a really big Trump supporter. I myself am not too interested in politics. But so when Joe heard that, you know, that Trump was going to look into it, he was really excited to see what could possibly happen.
How did you meet Joe? I mean, it's a big age difference. You're only 24 years old. How did you meet him? What attracted you to him? Do you like big cats? Because this world that he's in is very, very unusual.
Yeah. So, I mean, who isn't going to want to be around, you know, baby tigers or full-grown tigers? You know, it's like a whole different world being around them. But the first time I actually met Joe was at the bar he had, which was about half a mile away from the zoo. And he sang to me one of his songs. It was karaoke night. So, you know, that was the first interaction I kind of had with him.
He's a very eccentric character when you watch the show. As you said, he sings, he was running to be governor.
Running to be president.
Running to be president. He's a very, very eccentric man. But are we, the viewing public, seeing the real Joe? What about the Joe that you know? How would you describe him?
How exotic is he?
So, and he's a pretty wild character. Yeah, don't get me wrong. The docuseries really showed his more eccentric sides, but you know, behind the camera, Joe is a really sweet and sensitive guy. He would have, you know, done anything to help anybody, and the producers really wanted to get the point across that yeah, he's like opinionated, he's charismatic, and you know, he doesn't really care what people think, but that's really just in front of the camera.
What's he like with you? What's he like privately?
He's very romantic. He's super sweet. He's sincere. Every morning he would wake me up with coffee and a bacon, egg, and cheese croissant. So
how are you coping without him?
I need to ask you something here, Dillon. You meet him. Within 2 weeks of meeting him, you get engaged. But within 2 months of Joe's previous husband, and he had two husbands at once there, Travis, who we actually see in the documentary shooting himself in the head, right? You don't actually see that bit, but he kills himself on camera, right? So what about how did that affect you, knowing what mood were you in and were Joe in just 2 months after Travis killing himself?
So when I met Joe, I was in a really, really dark place in my own life, and Joe really kept me away from all of the negative aspects and the negative people that I was letting into my life. And Joe, he was lonely and he needed a companion, and so the initial relationship between him and I was basically like a companionship, a partnership. He needed somebody who was going to be there for him, and I needed somebody who ended up being Joe to keep me away from the things I was doing.
So briefly, Dillon, where does this leave your marriage? Eamonn said he's currently serving 22 years in prison. We've only got about 30 seconds. Where does this leave you and him?
I'm gonna stay by Joe's side. I mean, he was there for me. I'm not gonna just abandon him. That would really show a lack of character on my part. And you know, Joe, he doesn't deserve to be in there that long. So I'm gonna stick by his side until we figure out what's happening.
Dillon,
Okay.
we wish we had more time to talk to you and explain. Well, actually, we couldn't explain.
No, it
we
takes
just
too
couldn't
long.
explain everything that goes on Tiger King. But thank you, my friend, for your time. And for anyone who hasn't watched it, Tiger King is there. It's streaming on Netflix.